Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow.
Well, last time I spoke, I think it was about a couple weeks ago, I gave you a little introduction how I met my wife, Dana. Told you how I managed to trick her into our first date. So I like to just kind of continue this history between my wife and I. And so back then, it was 2008, I was interning at a church in the Bay Area, so that's how I met Dana. And so this church was very kind and gracious, and they let me borrow a vehicle for my 6 weeks there, just to be able to get around and things like that. So at this church, they had a old 90s Dodge Caravan. All right, so it was like this blue old Dodge Caravan that was very popular back in the 90s. So they let me borrow this car. So with no other car, I took this, I drove this car to pick up Dana. I had this, our first day was, all lined out. I was very nervous, because, I tricked her, so I kind of have to follow up with something a little bit better. So I brought a flower. I didn't bring a rose because it's kind of weird, right? So I got a daisy, this orange daisy, and I picked her up. I dressed up, and and I took her out. And so I didn't know much about the Bay Area. I didn't know what was nice. I didn't know where the hip places to go. I didn't know anything about the Bay Area. So I just went on Yelp. I found this restaurant up in Berkeley that closed down not too long after we went. Yeah, and so we went out. I picked her up, took her to Berkeley. We had dinner together. It's called Maritime East, and so we talked, and I felt like things were going really well. I was like, all right, I'm really making ends. We're having great conversation. It was great. I felt like we were connecting, and I was just like, all right, good job, Dennis, right? I'm doing a great job. No awkward silences, nothing like that. Okay, and so afterwards, we're like, okay, let's go walk around and just talk some more. So I took her to another place I knew and I didn't know anything about. I took her to Jack London Square because, I was like, all right, it's just right there. We're on our way back. We go walk around Jack London Square because I was like, oh, it's by the bay. It's really nice, So we're walking around and we're talking and things were just going like really well, right? So here am I going, I am just knocking this out of the park, right? Good job, Dennis. Here we go. All right, so, we're done. I take her home. And as I drop her off, I get out of the car, go around, open the door for her, bring her out, walk her back to her front porch. And then I was like, all right, here I go. And I go, Dana, may I see you again? Can I take you out again? And here I'm waiting, right? I was like, this is going great. It was awesome, right? The least that can happen was probably like, sure, right? I'm expecting of course. When are you? What took you so long? This is the greatest experience. Why don't we book the next 3, 4, 5 dates? I am ready, right? So I'm going, all right, things are great. Can I take you out again? She looks at me. I was all right, here we go, right? What is the answer? She goes, we'll see. We'll talk about it. And I was like, what? I've heard this one before. Anytime a girl says, we'll talk about it, it usually follows up with, you're a really nice guy, but you're too good for me. I'm not ready to date. AKA, I'm not ready to date you, right? And so I was like, oh man, are you kidding me? I can't, so I've been watching a lot of baseball. I feel like, it's just me, pitcher, I'm throwing my pitch. I'm just pretty much, here it is. Here's my pitch. You try to hit it. And she just smacks it up. I was like, all right, okay. Well, that's my best. Good luck. Thank you. Nice seeing you. Enjoy the rest of your life, right? So, well, of course, later on we see that she gave me that second date. We went to another restaurant. That closed down as well. Called JoJo's. We have a knack for closing down restaurants. But in that moment, I was going, what just happened? It's like I took one step forward. I was like, I'm doing great. And then all of a sudden, like, I just 2 steps back, right? It's like, okay, I can't trick her twice, right? Like, and that's it. That's all I got. And this morning, we're going to continue to look at what Israel, like, what will become the nation of Israel. The people, the Hebrew people, they kind of it looks like they're about to take one step forward into freedom. And they're ready to go towards into freedom. They're like very excited. And then next thing you know, it's like they took 2 steps back. And they're just like, what just happened? What in the world just happened? So we're in chapter 5 of Exodus. We're in Exodus 5, verse 1, and we're going to be from verse 1 to 21. And so here's the thing. This morning, what we want to talk about, the main thing that we want to see is, why would God allow them to take this step forward and then seemingly take these 2, 3, maybe even 4 steps back? Why would God allow that? And the thing is, God wanted them to go through that because he wanted to show Israel 2 very important things. 2 very important things. He wanted to show Israel just how deep in despair and slavery they're in, just how bad things are, but also just how powerful God is. Right? He's making them take these steps back. He's allowing things to go from bad to worse so he can show just how bad things really were to begin with, that they didn't notice, but just how powerful God is. So this morning for us, a lot of us here, we feel like things are going from bad to worse. It feels like we took 1, 2 steps forward, and all of a sudden we're taking steps back, and you're going, I thought I was doing what God wants me to do. I thought things were progressing well, but all of a sudden, things went backwards. And things are going from bad to worse. And God allows things to go from bad to worse so we can fully see our own despair, but we can also see God's full power in display. So God allows us to take steps backwards so we can see our despair, just how deep in sin and slavery and despair we are in. But that also shows just how big, powerful, and awesome God is. All right, so this morning, that's kind of where we're heading, and we're going to see how deep in despair these Israelites really are. So in chapter 5, verse 1, it says, afterward, and this is what happened afterward. In the end of chapter 4, Moses goes and tells these Israelites, tells Israel, hey, guess what? We're here to save you. God has sent us to save you. And then we'll just kind of backtrack a little bit, right? In chapter 4, verse 31, he goes, and the people believed when they heard that the Lord had visited the people of Israel and that he has seen their afflictions, and they bowed their heads and worshiped. Okay? So you see that these people, so Moses and Aaron goes back to the people, he tells them what's going on, they believe, they bow their head, and they worship, and they're like, here we go. This is awesome. Finally, God has heard our prayers. We are ready to bust out of Egypt. And they bowed their heads and they worship. And this is just like awesome, okay? We're taking steps forward. This is great. This is what's supposed to happen. And so afterwards, Moses and Aaron went and said to Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. Right? Big, bold statement. Hey, the Lord has told me to tell you, you got to let them go. And then Pharaoh said, who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go. Who the heck are you people? Like, are you serious? You're going to come and make this request to me? Come on now, right? And then Moses there like, let's pep talk. I don't think he quite understood. Let's try that again, right? Like, okay, let's try that again. Verse 3. Then they said, the God of the Hebrews had met with us, okay? The God of the Hebrews had met with us. And goes, please let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice it, Lord, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. So you don't get this, man. Our God told us that you kind of need to let him go. Please, right? Please. And then the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, behold, the people in the land are many. Now you make them rest from their burdens. So the first thing we see, right? We see that Moses and Aaron are ready. They're hyped up. They know what's going on. Israel's ready. They're ready to leave. They go and they bold statement and bam, they get shot down. And Pharaoh's going, God who? And who are you? What's going on? Go away, right? So the first thing we see is like they're taking steps backwards, and God immediately is challenging them to rely on him more than they think they can. Right? They're kind of like they're up here, and they just got kicked a few notches down, and God's going, no. I want you to continue to rely on me. Watch what's going to happen. Right? So God's going, I'm challenging you to rely on me more than you think you can. And a lot of times when we have been taken from bad to worse, or when we've been taken a few steps back, the first thing God does is he's challenging us to rely on him more than we really think we can. It's like God is back there watching. He's already told Moses that he's going to harden Pharaoh's heart. And it's like he's watching. He's like, all right, man, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? You're going to come to me? You're going to wait on me? You're going to rely on me? Hey, wait, what are you going to do now? And they're just kind of like shell-shocked at the moment. And God's just challenging them, rely on me. I will take you through this. Just rely on me. Watch what's going to happen. In my life, I feel like here's a few things that kind of really, in this whole idea of things going backwards, almost forcing me and Dana to rely on God more, made me kind of start thinking back like a few years, and just kind of like all the things that have happened and how God has continued to teach me and Dana how to rely on him, and how he was challenging both of us to rely on him more than we ever thought we could. We've gone through some really weird things, just in the last 4 years have gone through some really crazy things. The first thing that really comes to mind is that when we just started dating, Dana came and visited me. And while she was there in Texas, when we were going, and she was coming to see me, she receives this phone call from home. And what happened was, long story short, her dad got involved in a hit-and-run accident where he accidentally hit a little boy on a bicycle. He made a turn, and he didn't see this boy, and he hits him, and he was driving he's a little older of a gentleman, so he hits, like he feels a bump, he looks around, and he doesn't see anything. He's probably a little confused, and he's like, I guess I just hit a curb. Like he really didn't know, and drove off, right? And that's probably the worst thing that happened, but he had like absolutely no idea. And later on we find out, things just kind of went really bad because they're like, hey, you just hit a kid and you drove off, and he's like, what kid, right? And so we get this phone call, and we're like, hey, Dad got into this accident, and things are going pretty bad. And we see that it was just a terrible situation. It was the worst type of mistake you can ever make. It's like both of us knew her dad and his character, and we're like, there's no way he would ever do something like that. He's not that type of person. But no one knows, right? Nobody knows that. All they know is that the man drove off, and we're just like, oh my goodness, like, God, like, how can we show these people that, it was an honest mistake, and yes, and it was a terrible mistake, and when we see, and just things just got worse. It got worse, and then all of a sudden, literally, we embarked on like a 4-year journey of lawsuits and things like that, and the whole time we're going, God, this is not fair. This is not fair. Like, one, we felt like we were getting taken advantage of. Two, you know Dana's dad. You know what's going on. And we're just like, God, it's like we're moving backwards. And literally, not long after that, I would say like maybe less than 6 months after that, I get a phone call from Dana in the middle of the day. She gives me a call and she says, my mom got shot in my garage. And I said, what? Wait, what? And apparently, through this freak accident, or it's not a freak accident, just like kind of this freak scenario, these two people try to try to carjack my mother-in-law in the garage, right? They just got home and they try to carjack her. And my mother-in-law, being very much like Dana, a very feisty lady, he says, you are not taking my car. And they shot her. And I was just kind of like, what just happened? And like, praise God, she healed, she recovered, and it was great. But here we are, we go, it's like justice not being able to, like justice was not served. One, they couldn't find the person that shot my mother-in-law. And we're going, how can you not find, like it's broad daylight, and the person just shot my mother-in-law in the garage. How did you not see that? And then now we're like facing this lawsuit. We're going, how can you not see that? This was a huge accident. Of course, this and that. And we're going, this is crazy. And then not long after, and I'm, the whole time I'm going, God, I don't know how to trust you in this like stuff. Like, this is nuts. Like, these are crazy things that are just like, no normal person experience one or both things in their lifetime. And then, not long after that, I get a phone call. My mom says that the doctor says I have cancer. So, are you kidding me? Like, are you serious? Are you serious? Like, how much more can we take? How much more than we take? And then, the big one out of them all, a few years later, get a phone call at 10:30 p.m. Your dad just collapsed. What? He's not even 60. Phone call later, your dad just suddenly passed away. And from here, it seemed like things progressively got worse and worse and worse. And the whole time, God was going, you got to trust me. You need to rely on me. You need to learn to rely on me more than you really think you can, because I'm going, I don't know how much more I can. I don't know how much more I can take. And here we are, about 4 or 5 years later. The lawsuits are all done. Justice was served. The payout, everything was fair. That we understood that even though it was an accident and we had some responsibility and it was fair, and the judge was able to see that, we say, praise God for that. They found the shooter randomly. We never thought it would have happened. Dana got a random phone call one day, said, we found her. And she goes, her? I thought it was a guy. And they found the shooter. My mom had successful surgery, and things going and things seemingly gone well. But here we are now, and there's things that keep on going. That guy goes, are you going to trust me here? Are you going to trust me here? Are you going to trust me here? When things go from bad to worse, when we are in our suffering, and it seems like suffering gets worse and worse, it's because God is shaping and molding us to trust Him more and more. The worse our situation gets is more opportunities for God to show us that we can and should trust Him, for Him to show us that my power is much greater than you think it is. And here He is, just looking at our situation. He goes, what you going to do now? Are you going to call on to me? Are you going to trust me? Do you believe I can do this? What are you going to do? How are you going to trust Him? What are you going to do? Maybe it's your marriage when you go, I cannot get through to my spouse. Things are not going to change. And God's going, are you going to trust me on this? Will you trust me? Or maybe it's school and you're going, I cannot get through these classes. I just don't understand what's going on. Like how I'm working my best, and I'm trying my hardest, and I just can't get these things done. And I feel like a failure. And God's going, are you going to trust me here? Are you going to trust in me here? Or maybe it's just your relationships with your friends. where things are just getting worse and you're just going, I don't, like, I feel so lonely. I feel like I don't know anybody. I feel like nobody accepts me or nobody wants me. I feel so alone and things are getting worse. And then God's going, are you going to trust me? Do you know my power? I want you to rely on me more and more. And he's going, trust me in this. Your steps backwards aren't steps backwards. There are opportunities for you to see just how great and powerful I am. And here we are, Moses and Aaron. And we know the end of this story. We know the end of this story because God shows just how great, powerful, and strong he is. And we'll see them later on with the plagues. We'll see with the parting of the Red Sea. We'll see with the manna coming from the sky. We'll see with the water coming from just in the middle of the desert from a rock. We'll see how great and powerful God is. But the whole point is not just God providing for whatever our need is. It's going, God's showing us, I am trustworthy. I am faithful. You need to be faithful to me. Let's keep on going in verse 6. And here's Pharaoh. He's continuing. And he goes, the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their foremen, you shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as in the past. Let them go and gather for themselves. For the number of bricks that they made in the past you shall impose on them, and you shall by no means reduce it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry, let us go and offer sacrifice to our God. Let heavier work be laid on the men, that they may labor at it and pay no regard to lying words. So the taskmasters and the foremen of the people went out and said to the people, thus says Pharaoh, not thus says God, but thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go and get your straw yourselves wherever you can find it. But your work will not be reduced in the least. So the people were scattered throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters were urgently saying, complete your work, your daily task each day, as when there was straw. And the foremen of the people of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten when they were and were asked, why have you not done all your tasks of making bricks today and yesterday and in the past? And we see that. So not only Pharaoh says, I'm not going to let you go, but guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make things harder for you now. No straw for you. You are not going to have any straw. And what they needed to the straw actually help with the bricks and help them help strengthen the bricks, help them dry faster, and just really provide a lot of structure for it. So kind of straw was very important in their brick making business in the day, right? So Pharaoh was building all these things. He's building all this stuff, and they needed a lot of bricks. So these people are building bricks every single day. And I guess before they were given straw, and Pharaoh goes, I'm just going to take that away from you. I'm going to force you to go find your own straw, and you're just going to have to make the same amount of bricks. And this kind of is very normal during, back in the day, during ancient times, when the people are trying to uprise or rebel, they go, well, we'll just kind of, give them more labor, get them more things to do, so they'll stop it. Just kind of go showing them who's the boss, right? You want to mess with me? Fine, I'll get you, right? Mess with the bulls, you'll get the horns. And so here they go, and they're just trying to they're trying to get at this, and he's just kind of cutting them from the start, and he's saying that, I'm going to just make things harder for you. I'm just going to make things harder for you. And here's the thing what God is doing. Our second point, that God is opening their eyes to the oppression they are truly under. He's opening their eyes to the oppression that they're truly under. This wasn't new oppression. This oppression was always there. Pharaoh was able to do whatever he wanted, and God is opening their eyes that this is your situation. This is your situation. Yeah, things are getting worse, but that's actually just reality for you. Your enslavement, your slavery, that's just reality. This is just what happens. And oftentimes when things go from bad to worse, not only when we see our own despair, we see just how bad things are. We see the oppression that we are really, truly under. You see, sin and Satan is the biggest oppressor in all our lives. Especially before any of us came to know Christ, that was the oppression we were under. In our sin, that was oppression that we're really under. A lot of us this morning think that we might not be that anymore. We might not have that oppression anymore. But as we actually look in our own lives, there's some things that still oppress us. For me, as much as I don't want to say, as much I really hate to admit, because one, it sounds absolutely silly and stupid, and two, it in some sense is very pathetic, and three, it'll just give more ammo to Dana. One of the things that really oppressed me for a while, that I finally noticed, was Texas football. I'm not saying just because you're a fan of a sports team or even a fanatic is a bad thing. But I started noticing some things during football season that made me realize that it was less of an enjoyment, it was more of oppression. I noticed this, or maybe more like I finally faced it and acknowledged it this season. So what happened was, it was the second game of the season, and Dana was about to go back to work, so we wanted to do a barbecue for her cousins, just for her cousins to come over and we'll just relax, eat some barbecue, have a good time. You know, I told them that I was going to smoke them some ribs and kind of introduce them to Texas barbecue. I got myself a new grill, and I was just doing all of these things. I was very excited. So, we invited her cousins over to come over and just have a meal together. And I was like, I planned, and you don't know how crazy I am. I plan my falls Saturdays around the schedule. I will look on the schedule, who are we playing this week? Oh, I can't do this. That's how I plan my life. Have you noticed, we had a hike yesterday, and it was also Texas's bye week, right? So I do these things, and so it's bad, I know, right? Hey, Footprints, want to hang out? There's no football, let's go, right? And so I plan my schedule I'm very careful about this. And so I bring them over. I know this is their start time, right? It's 4 p.m. The start time was 4 p.m. And so by the time they get here, the game should be halfway over. They're not playing a really good team, so it should be almost done by then. We should be fine, right? And so, and it's just her cousins. No big deal, right? And we can all watch TV. We'll eat. It'll be great, right? So I go and I tell her cousins, and it's like, everything's fine. Low key, low maintenance. We're just eating barbecue, watching Texas football. I mean, there's no better way to spend Saturday. All right, so I get them, and what happened as a small gathering somehow became my parents, my parent-in-laws, they came, and then my Dana's aunt came, and Dana's cousin's cousin came, and Dana's cousin's friend came. And then instead of sitting in front of the TV, we now had to sit in a dining room table, right? And then I was just kind of like, it's a dinner party. Okay, what happened? And then on top of that, I was like, that's fine, no problem. They're coming at 6. The game starts at 4. 2 hours in, we should be up by quite a bit, so I don't have to worry about it. There's a rain delay. I know. The worst time. There's a rain delay in Provo, Utah. Those Mormons, right? And so we're playing BYU. And so and so this is what happened. On top of that, they get here, the game starts late, and Texas was struggling, and the table is here, my living room's here. I did not sit down the whole day, and I did this. Oh, the ribs are great, thanks. Oh, commercial, right? And I'm walking back and forth the whole time. I didn't talk to anybody. I did not talk to anybody, right? And then it's like by 8 p.m., they're like, all right, we're going to leave. Okay, bye. Right? It's like, we're good. And then all gone. Game's over. We lost. I was just upset out of my mind. How in the world did we lose this game? I was frustrated. I was angry. Now we got these pile of dishes. And I'm also upset that, man, these people came. I didn't even interact with them. And then I'm just unhappy. I'm just like ruined, right? Pathetic. I'm ruined. Like football, I mean, we lost. If we won, like, woo! I'm just like, we lost. I didn't even get to talk to anybody. Now we're going to be unranked. How in the world did we lose? Are you serious? Can anyone make a tackle? We lost. All right, so I'm just going crazy. And Dana, usually she would be like, it's just a game. Get your head in. She actually started asking me these questions like, oh, I'm really sorry we lost. And sorry. And I started realizing, I kind of like, it came out of my mind, it's like, I just couldn't help it. I mean, I wanted to spend time with your family. I mean, I love your family. They're great. They're fun. It was just exciting. But I go, I couldn't help it. Like I had to watch it. I couldn't help myself. And I don't know why. And I go, man, this, for me, I'm finally like, that sucks. Something that went from like an enjoyment, a hobby, something I love doing to almost like, it started like, it'll take me away from family. And I finally realized that's some crazy type of oppression. And things I didn't even notice, I didn't realize. And all of us this morning, we're oppressed. We're oppressed in some way, and God is making us take steps back so we can actually see it, because a lot of us, we don't even know. God makes us take steps back so we can see, there's actually some things that are really oppressing you, man. You need to really check this out. Some of us here this morning is like, I can't stop working. I'm a workaholic. I want to go home and spend time with family, but all I do is I think about work. I think about what I can do. I can't help but go into the office. This is my life. I just can't help it. It's like I'm oppressed. I cannot help but do this. Or is this some of us going, I can't help but gossip. I don't want to talk bad about people. I don't want to say things, but it's like I just can't help it. I can't stop. I just feel like it has this control under me, and I just can't stop. A lot of the men here, it's lust. There's no man that goes, I love struggling with this. I want to. No one. There's like, I can't help it. I am completely oppressed. I am in complete despair. It is the worst. I can just like, as much I want to get rid of it, I can't. It just draws me back in. Sometimes it's like grades. I can't stop. I can't help but use grades. I need to study. I need to do this. I will avoid friends. I will avoid fellowship. I'll stop going to church. I won't talk to family. If I can just achieve my grades, if I can just get good grades, if I can just get into this school, if I can just do this, if I make enough money, if I just do this. And it's like, whether it's your retirement fund or just your savings account, whether it's video games or your grades, whether it's sports like me or your workplace, all of us have been oppressed in one way or the other. And we go, I can't get myself out of here. And God keeps on taking you steps back and go, look at your despair. Look who's actually in control in your life. Look who's calling the shots. Pharaoh is taking the straw away from you. So you actually see, not that things are great with straw, it's that you shouldn't be doing that in the first place. You should be free from that to begin with. But a lot of us are oppressed this morning. And God goes, I want you to see the depth of your oppression and your despair so you can see my power. So you can see how I can deliver you. And it goes back to the first point. Are you going to trust me? Are you going to rely on me? Come on, just look at me. I can do this for you. And lastly, let's just finish this off, verse 15. And it says, then the foremen of the people of Israel, so the foremen were actually, they're under taskmasters, right? And they're actually Israelites. They're actually the Hebrew people. And the foremen of the people of Israel, they came and cried to Pharaoh, right? They came to cry, and they cried to Pharaoh. He goes, why do you treat your servants? Why do you treat your servants like this? No straw is given to your servants. Yet they say to us, make bricks, and behold, your servants are beaten. But the fault is in your own people. But he said, you're idle. You're idle. That is why you say, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Go now and work. No straw will be given you. But you must still deliver the same number of bricks. The foreman of the people of Israel saw that they were in trouble when they said, you shall by no means reduce your number of bricks, your daily task each day. They met with they met Moses and Aaron, who were waiting for them as they came out from Pharaoh, and they said to them, "The Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us a stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us." I want us to see two crazy things that happens. You see that these foremen, so there's kind of like the hierarchy is Pharaoh, and he tells his taskmasters to they're in charge of like the whole slave economy, right? And then you got under them the foremen who are actually Israelites, and they're like kind of top on, they're in charge of the rest of the slaves. So they're kind of one in charge, and they're getting beaten because, of course, they're not going to produce enough bricks. That's like an impossible thing to do when you're telling them to do this, make all the bricks that you're supposed to make, but I'm going to take a critical component out, right? And so we see that these foremen, they go to Pharaoh, and they notice two things. They cried out to Pharaoh, and they called themselves the servants to Pharaoh. In chapter 2 of Exodus, at the end of chapter 2 of Exodus, it says that the people cried out to God, and God heard them. God knew them. And then when God says that when God told Moses to deliver his people, why? So these people can serve God. You see, they got things mixed up. Their goal is, they're supposed to cry out to God, and they're supposed to serve God. But instead, they're crying out to Pharaoh. Crying out to Pharaoh for salvation. They're crying out to Pharaoh for relief. The last point this morning is God wants us to cry out to Him for salvation. He wants us to cry out to Him for salvation. There's some crazy thing that's going on. There's this crazy thing that kind of happened in 1973. In Sweden, there was this bank heist that happened. Right? So these guys robbed this bank, and what happened was they took and kept I think 4 or 6 of the bank tellers hostage, and they had a standoff between the police for about 6 days. All right, and so it was literally like what you see on TV, that type of stuff. They're requesting, a fast car. They're trying to get out, or if you don't meet our demands, we're going to start killing hostages. The typical thing, literally the things that we see on TV, was actually happening. All right, and so the police they're trying to save these hostages. And they went in, they kind of went from the top apartment, and they're looking around, they drilled holes and etc. And they're kind of scoping out and seeing who's in there, and they're trying to save them. And this very odd thing happened. A couple of these people being held hostage, I don't know how many. I know at least one. And I didn't do a lot of research on this. I just Wikipedia'd it, right? So from what I know from Wikipedia, at least one of them, it was really weird because within the 6 days, these hostages actually turned against the police. They're like, the police are really screwing things up. The police are they're making things hard for us, and they're doing, and it was just they started siding with their captors. It's a very odd thing that happened. They started signing their captors. Eventually, they freed them, and even afterwards, some of them actually started. They still felt that loyalty towards their captors, that they even raised up money for their criminal lawyer or something like that, while these people were going to trial. And so what happened? The psychologists kind of looked at this and they studied this, and they're like, this is just weird. It's odd. And this is kind of what happened. And this is what they call Stockholm syndrome, or captured bonding. And it was very odd. And it's not very prevalent. They said about 27% of the people who get captured will respond this way. Most people don't. And even within those 27%, with proper, counseling, etc., they're able to get over it. It's just very odd. And this is how they define it, right? It's a psychological phenomenon which hostages express empathy and sympathy and have positive feelings towards their captors, sometimes to the point of defending them. These feelings are generally considered irrational in the light of the danger or risk endured by the victims, who essentially mistake a lack of abuse from their captors for an act of kindness. It's really odd, right? They mistake a lack of abuse from their captors for an act of kindness. Now, in some sense, I don't want to take away from this because that's some deep hurt. But in some sense, what we can kind of glean from that is a little bit of these people, of these foremen's hearts, and a reflection of our hearts. They go to Pharaoh and they say, "Forget about all the things we said. We won't leave. Just give us the straw back and we'll call it even." Right? Just give us the straw back and we'll call it even. We don't need to be free. We just need straw. Just give us straw and we'll just make the bricks and we'll be okay with that. Essentially, they're coming and they're going, "I don't want to be fully free. I just kind of want to go back to the way things were. Is that okay?" And they're going to the oppressor for freedom. Out of all people, why would you go to the oppressor for freedom? Why would the oppressor take away the oppression? See, they went to the wrong person. The Lord is the one that can truly free us from our oppression. But they go and they try bargaining. How many of us do that? I am in way too deep. If I only struggled in this area, I'm okay. God, I feel like my self-worth is tied into so many people. If it's just only tied into one person, I'll be fine. I can deal with one, or maybe just two. I'm struggling so much with my lust. If I can only just narrow it to this stuff, I'll be okay. Because I don't like where I'm going. I don't like where I'm heading. If I only had this much money, God, I'll be okay. I'll stop striving for the millionaire status. If I just have here, I'm okay. I don't need that fancy car. If I can just get this, I'm okay. We're not looking for freedom. We're looking for compromise. You got me. You can keep me hostage for the rest of your life. But just make it a little bit easier. Instead of a feast, we go, if I just get some bread and water, I'm okay. I'll survive. How many of us go to our captors and ask for some relief? How many of us go, "Satan, just stop tempting me," versus "God, free me"? Right? We look to our captors for relief. And God says, "I want you to cry out to me for salvation. I'm the one that can save you. I'm the one that can free you. Stop turning back to those things. Turn to me. They won't free you. They will ask more of you. They will always ask more of you. I am the only one that can free you." And a lot of us, we turn to what is actually enslaving us, and we go, "Hey, let's just strike a bargain. Let's just strike a deal. What can reduce my amount of guilt? What will make it okay enough? What will stop the fights? What will stop the hurt? What will stop the pain? When will things can become manageable? I'll take that. I don't need freedom. I want to manage my pain. And what you have given me, I cannot manage this pain, but I can manage this pain, so just bring it back here." And God goes, "You know what? I have something completely different for you. I want to just take all that from you. Will you want that instead?" C.S. Lewis once said, in a very roughly paraphrased quote, "A lot of us settle for the mud pies in the slums because we don't know what a day at the sea looks like." God has something more for us. So he takes us steps back to see just how bad things are for us because we've forgotten. But he also shows just how good he is because we have forgotten as well. So he does this for us to see just how big and powerful he is. So be okay with the steps backwards. Because sometimes those steps back are actually steps towards God. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I ask that your word speaks to us in a way that should be spoken this morning. Everyone has different struggles, and everyone comes with different pains. Everyone comes with different sins, including myself. And I go, sometimes I say, these steps backwards are too much to bear, but you say, my grace is sufficient for you. And your power is made perfect in our weakness, Lord. Thank you, and pray all this in your Son's name. Amen.